Hello everyone and welcome back to the lectures related to social planning. As I was discussing about the various levels of planning and how planning is important and how there is interrelationship between social planning and policy. So today we are going to discuss about the sources of planning. I will begin by talking about the Indian Constitution, how Constitution as well as Planning Commission, now Niti Aayog and the National Development Council has been instrumental in providing ready references and providing a base for the planners to understand that how planning should be done and in what manner planning should be done. When you look into the Indian Constitution, it has absorbed features from various other nations' constitutions that would suit the Indian problems and aspirations. So the Constituent Assembly took the best features from everywhere and made this at its own. So our constitution has taken features, from the Government of India Act of 1935, and these are the Federal Scheme, Office of Governor, Judiciary, Public Service Commission, emergency provisions, and administrative detail. Now, if we look into the constitutional part, apart from the preamble, there are two important elements to a constitution. First is the directive. First are the fundamental rights. And secondly, the directive principle of state policy. Now, if you look into the directive principles of state policy, Article 36 to 51, Part 4 of the Constitutions, these are particularly significant for planning because directive principles of state policy they give they these lay down the guidelines for the state. They lay down the foundation, the course of action, or it gives a reference point to the state that to bring about a socioeconomic balance, to achieve the socioeconomic goals, objectives, to ensure justice, to ensure equality and equity has been maintained, to bring about, through these, through directive principles of state policies actually provides a guideline to the various state departments where they can where they can formulate policies for the welfare of the population, particularly the marginalized. It not only talks about the social welfare, but it promotes economic welfare. It also ensures that there has to be a right to adequate means of livelihood and an equitable distribution of resources amongst the population. There should be giving away with any kind of gender any kind of disparities, whether it is an income disparity or gender disparity. So it also focuses on the promotion of education and public health, like the existence of RTE Act, the implementation of RTE Act, or the various national education policies which has been initiated. It ensures that these are being properly implemented, properly monitored and evaluated. Then it also looks into the environmental protection and improvement, and it also ensures the right to work, education and public assistance. So these principles, they actually inspire the planning process, the long-term national as well as state level development plans, such as the poverty alleviation or educational upliftment, education and reforms, environmental policies, land reforms, healthcare, building healthcare, health, providing health facilities, health, strengthening the healthcare structure, infrastructure development, housing facilities. So this all through directive principles, because there are certain, as mentioned earlier, that articles, various articles which looks into the provision of health, education, housing, infrastructure, right to work, decent living, quality of life. It's particularly focuses on the welfare of the people. So this through DPSP, planning becomes more significant. Long-term strategic planning as well as tactical planning, as well as operational planning, all is included. Then the federal structure on and the division of powers. The Constitution provides a federal system which clearly defines responsibilities between the union as well as the state. So there are certain, there's a two important list, union list as well as the concurrent list, which determines the subjects on which each level of government can plan and legislate. So like in Article 246 politics, the allocation of powers for legislative and executive functions, as well as this federal system also, since it is about bifurcation of the union and the state responsibilities, there is a clear-cut demarcation that what are the roles, responsibilities which are taken at the center, and what are the roles and responsibilities which are taken at the state level. So the union and state, they prepare their own plans within their domains, ensuring regional development while aligning with the national policy. So there is a synchronization, there is there is a close network or nexus between there is a close coordination between the policies and the planning part of at the center as well as the state. Now, if you talk about the fundamental duties, or fundamental rights and duties, part 3, of course, focuses on the fundamental rights, which ensures when you talk about the just society, when you talk about equal society, a fair society. So fundamental rights actually ensures rights which have or which rights such as equality, freedom and protection against discrimination. And part 4a, fundamental duties, which emphasizes responsibilities like protecting public property and promoting harmony. So there has to be a sense of accountability, there's a sense of responsibility, there's a sense of regulatory conformity when you look into these part, where it also talks about individual's sense of belongingness or his sense of responsibilities in performing his duties. So when we talk about the impact of it, development plans, they must respect and promote fundamental rights, ensuring inclusive growth and safeguarding the civil liberties, like planning for the marginalized groups, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, which is deeply rooted in the constitutional mandate for equality and equity. Then there is also the role of finance commission, which is equally important. The Constitution has established the Finance Commission to recommend financial distributions like resource allocation or budget allocation between the union and the state, and it provides necessary fundings for the implement of the various schemes or for the implementation of development programs or plans at different levels, and it also ensures a balanced and a fair distribution of resources by addressing various kind of disparities, whether it's regional disparities or income disparities. The economic, if you look into the planning part of it, 5-year plans are very important and significant in when you look into the constitutional framework and how planning commission had been in fact constituted in order to look into these 5-year plans. So if you look into the term economic planning, which is used to describe the long-term plans of the government of India to develop and coordinate the economy with efficient utilization of resources. This is economic planning was initiated immediately after the post independence, that was 1950 onwards, and 1951 when planning commission was constituted and came into existence. So it started with in 1950, which deemed necessary to accelerate the economic growth and development of nation. So in view of this, if you look into the long term planning or long term objectives, the 5-year plans were initiated, and these 5-year plans had these broader objectives of high growth rate to improve the living standards of the people, of the residents, economic stability for prosperity, self-reliant, self-sufficient economy, then social justice and reducing the inequalities, and then modernization of economy. So the idea of economic planning for 5 years was taken from the Soviet Union and the socialist influence of the first Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And the first 8 5-year plans in India emphasized on growing the public sector with huge investments in the heavy and basic industries. But since the launch of the 9 5-year plan 1997, attention was shifted towards making the government a growth facilitator. Now we briefly look into the various plans which has been initiated and what were the important objectives. Like if you talk about the first 5-year plan, which was in 1951-96, the targets and objectives were more or less achieved with an active role of the state in all economic sectors. And the important objective was to the rehabilitation of refugees, rapid agricultural development to achieve food self-sufficiency in the shortest possible time, and the control of inflation. Then the second 5-year plan was initiated in 1956-61. the Nehru-Mahalanobis model was adopted. Rapid industrialization was the main objective, with particular emphasis on the development of basic and heavy industries. Industrial policy of 1956 was accepted, and which resulted in the establishment of socialist pattern of society as the goal of economic policy. Then the third five-year plan, which was in 1961-66, it focused on making India a more self-reliant and self-sufficient, self-generating economy. Efforts being made to work into to make India self-sufficient and self-reliant. Then the plan holidays, there was the annual plans were there, 1966 and 69. This was when there was a crisis in agricultural sectors, and serious food shortage required attention. So there was this, it involved the distribution of high yielding varieties of seeds, extensive use of fertilizers, exploitation of irrigation potential, and soil conservation measures. Then the fourth five-year plan, which was in 1969 and 74, was ambitious. But however, and the objective of this plan was growth with stability and progressive achievement of self-reliance, Garibi Hatao target. Okay, and then the five-year plans of 1974-79, there was a high inflation. It was terminated by the Janda government, and the Indian National Highway, the Indian National Highway system was introduced for the first time. The proper or the most broader objective, the most important and pertinent objective, was the removal of poverty and attainment of self-reliance. Then the sixth five-year plan, 1980 and 1985, it had a direct attack on the problems of poverty by creating conditions of an expanding economy. The seventh five-year plan, which was in 85 and 1990, emphasis was on policies and programs that would accelerate the growth in food grains production, increasing employment opportunities, and raising productivity. Then, and again, the annual plans of 1989 and 1991, it was the beginning of privatization and liberalization. So, the new economic policy, that was globalization, privatization, liberalization, came into existence. However, there were no plan due to certain political uncertainties at what would be the course of action, as the new neoliberal reforms had paved the way for involvement of the private sector. It started strengthening of the private sector, focusing more on the private sector players. So no particular, due to certain upheaval in political scenario, there was upheaval in this political system. So there were no plan particularly which were being focusing on it. Then the eighth five-year plan was initiated in 1992-1997. Rapid economic growth had taken place. There was a high growth of agriculture and allied sectors and the manufacturing sectors. There was enhanced in growth in exports and imports as well. There was also an improvement in the trade and current account deficit, and to undertake an annual average growth of 5.6%. Then the ninth five-year plan of 1997-2002, it achieved a GDP growth rate of 5.4, lower than the target. However, yet the industrial growth was 4.5%, which was higher than the target 3%. And the focus of this ninth year plan was on the quality of life, generation of productive employment generation activities were initiated, and there has to be regional balance and self-reliance. So along with economic growth, social justice, equality and equity was to be achieved during this ninth year plan. Then the 10th five-year plan, 2002-2007, it tried to achieve 8%, achieved 8% GDP growth rate, reducing poverty by 5 points and increasing the literacy rate in the country. Then the 11th five-year plan, which was in 2007-2012, it has, a rapid and inclusive growth has taken place. Empowerment through education and skill development initiatives were being taken up. There has been a reduction of gender inequality, environmental sustainability sustainability initiatives were also on rise to increase the growth rate in agriculture, industry and services to 4% to 10% and 9% respectively, then providing clean drinking water facilities for all by 2009. Then the 12th plan was 2012 and 2017. Faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth was the focus and the broader objective, raising agricultural output to 4%, manufacturing sector growth to 10%, and the target of adding over this much of power generation capacity. Then these were the certain objectives of economic planning, like increased levels of employment, self-sufficiency, as the 5-year plans have just stated out, economic stability, bring about stable market conditions in order to the economic growth, making India self-sufficient and self-reliant in major commodities, increasing the exports through economic planning, and increasing levels of employment, so that the people who would have better opportunities, better utilize available. The objective was to utilize available human resources by in creating or by creating employment opportunities and employment levels, and also social welfare and provisions of efficient social services were initiated. In fact, the objectives of the 5-year plans, as well as the plan suggested by Niti Aayog, it aimed to increase labor welfare, social welfare for all sections of the society, development of social services in India, such as education, healthcare, emergency services, which has always been a part of planning in India. Then regional development also were initiated. When you talk about the objectives, like when economic planning was introduced, it aimed at reducing regional disparities in development. It also focuses on studying these disparities and suggesting strategies to reduce these kind of disparities among the various states, as some states were fairly economically more developed and sound as compared to other states. Then talking about or bringing about a more comprehensive and sustainable development approach, the development of all economic sectors such as agriculture, industry, allied services, were the major objectives of this planning system. And reduction in economic inequality, measures were taken to reduce inequalities through progressive taxation, employment generation, and reservation of jobs, which have been a central objective for Indian economic planning since independence. In social justice, the objective of planning was it was also in sync with other objectives, and has been a central focus of a central focus to reduce the disparities amongst the various populations, particularly those who are living below the poverty line, by providing them accessibility to employment and social services, and providing them social protection and social insurances, and increasing the standard of living, by increasing the per capita income and equal distribution of income, one of the major reason for India's planning system. Then when that was the contribution of, when we look into the how the constitution had played significantly in determining the course of action, or determining the planning process. Now, the Planning Commission of India, which was established in 1950 by resolution of the Government of India, with the primary aim of promoting a planned and coordinated effort or development of the country. And till 2000, before 2014-15, it was the Planning Commission who has been instrumental in framing policies, in talking about welfare measures and plans, which has been responsible for accelerating India's economic growth and development, also guiding the nation's development trajectory till its dissolution in 2014. And the various important functions of Planning Commission was, first of all, is formulation of 5-year plans. The Commission prepared comprehensive 5-year plans to outline the national priorities, to define the broader goals and objectives, to bring about a socio-economic balance and development society. It also had carved, it also prepared annual plans during these periods, which were operational, which were not operational, but however, they at least tried to review and analyze what were the outcomes of the various progressive 5-year plans. Then assessment of resources, it also assessed the country's material, capital and human resources. It determines the most efficient ways to utilize these resources for the utmost benefit, which could be used for overall growth and development. Then allocation of resources, the Planning Commission also determined or also recommended the allocation of financial resources between the center and the states for implementing the development plans. Then policy formulation, another important part was of Planning Commission was to act as an advisory body to the government on economic policies and social policies and the strategies and plan of action initiated or taken for achieving these long-term goals and objectives. Then monitoring and evaluation. Monitoring and evaluation was another important feature which was done during the 5-year plan. Every 5-year plans were being closely monitored, supervised, evaluating the performance of the various programs and schemes under the 5-year plans, and also it suggested corrective measures which has to be taken to address the challenges during the plan implementation. Monitoring evaluation. Then there was promotion of balanced development. It focuses on reducing regional disparities by promoting a more equitable, balanced growth across states as well as regions. It also ensures that the underdeveloped states or the underdeveloped areas, they received adequate amount of resources, as well as special attention should be given to bring them into the mainstream, to talk about the inclusive development and growth. Then encouraging public as well as private sector involvement. It also focused on various identifying the various public sector as well as private sectors, because participation of both the sectors, that is private and private sectors, is crucial in the implementation of the planning process. It encouraged the private sector's investments in the areas where they could contribute to national growth. Then the coordination between various ministries and states. One of the important part of the Planning Commission was that it should facilitate the coordination from different central ministries as well as the state government to ensure effective implementation of development programs which has been initiated. Then it focuses on poverty alleviation programs. It designed and implemented various schemes and programs which aimed at reducing poverty, or at least eradicating or minimizing poverty and improving the standard of living and quality of life of the marginalized groups. And lastly, it also the Planning Commission was effective as an advisory role in policy implementation. It provided a technical as well as other support system in making and formulation of policies to the various government mechanism. Then the objectives of the Planning Commission was, first of all, to achieve economic growth by ensuring that there should be a high and steady rates of economic growth through planned development initiatives. Secondly, it was to minimize disparities or any kind of minimize income and wealth disparities between different sections of the population, the society among the various regions. It focuses on giving equal opportunities and accessibility to a larger population. And poverty alleviation programs, implement programs which aimed at reducing poverty alleviation, improving the socio-economic conditions of the underprivileged. It also focuses on creating employment opportunities for the larger, creating employment opportunities both in the rural as well as in the urban areas. Making self-reliance and self-sufficiency was another important agenda of Planning Commission, which was also in their 5-year plans. That is to reduce dependency on the foreign aid by achieving self-sufficiency in various sectors like agriculture, industry and technology. Then modernization of the economy. It focuses on industrialization, particularly when new liberal reforms came into existence in in 1992, when there was a rapid in privatization, globalization, liberalization. So embracing technological advancement and appreciating or adopting or adapting to technological advancements in agriculture sector, building in infrastructure development, as well as agriculture, strengthening the agriculture based on modern tools and equipments. So it was kind of modernizing the Indian economic system. Then social justice, another important part of it was to promote social justice, equality and equity, by ensuring the inclusions of the disadvantaged sections of the disadvantaged and marginalized groups in the development process, because unless and until there is an inclusivity or there is an equal participation of such groups, we cannot be in the league of developing or developed nations, because justice can be only meted out, can be only ensured when people have accessibility, they have opportunity, they have they have choices to make. Then bringing about a balanced regional development, addressing any kind of regional disparities by allocating more resources to the backward regions and states. Then there is environmental sustainability, incorporating environmental concerns in development to planning to ensure there is a sustainable growth. So, the 5-year plans had been, the Planning Commission had been very instrumental in, first of all, in spearheading the 5-year plans. It also aimed at the poverty reducing, poverty alleviation programs, then employment generation activities, agricultural growth, as well as industrial growth. And 5-year plans were extremely instrumental in shaping the country's future growth and prosperity in terms of economic and social and health sectors, when we had gained when India achieved independence. Then however, the Planning Commission was dissolved in 2014, though it played a very vital role in the emergence, during the days of Panchayati, during the days of the Raj to independent India. However, the commission has always been accused of being a more Soviet-style bureaucratic body that stifled the economic growth. So in 2012, the commission received flack for spending about a lot of money, or 35 lakhs, for renovating just 2 toilets, and they're suggesting that the country's citizens who spent more than 27 per day were not poor. So in 2004, it was being replaced by Niti Aayog, which was a more robust organization, and it was more like a think tank that works with stakeholders for developing the country. Then the National Development Council, the role of the National Development Council in planning was equally instrumental. The National Development Council, also known as the Rashtriya Vikas Parishad, is an apex body for the decision making and deliberations on development matters in India, which is being presided over by the Prime Minister. So the National Development Council was set up on August 6, 1952, to strengthen and mobilize the efforts and resources of the nation in support of the plan to promote common economic policies in all vital spheres, and to ensure the balanced and rapid development of all parts of the country. It was crucial in India's policy framework, and it was established as a platform for cooperation and coordination between the central as well as the state governments. The National Development Council formulated policies for various sectors such as agriculture, industry and infrastructure, and it aims to promote balanced economic development in the country. In fact, the NDC is a forum for the exchange of ideas and for building consensus on key developmental issues, and it plays a very crucial role in India's economic and social development. In fact, it reflects the country's commitment to inclusive growth as well as sustainable development. The National Development Council, or Rashtriya Vikas Parishad, functions as the highest authority for the decision making and the discussion concerning development matters, as chaired by the Prime Minister. And its objectives included promoting consistent economic policies across key areas, ensuring a balanced and swift development in all regions. The Council of Ministers, the Council consists of the Prime Ministers, Union Cabinet Ministers, Chief Ministers of all states or their their representatives, union territory representatives, and the members of Niti Aayog, formerly known as the Planning Commission. The objectives of NDC was there to create a nation free of exploitation and poverty, to achieve equality, decent governance rights, and a welcoming environment, to reduce violence against women while advocating for human rights, fair governance, and gender equality, to strengthen civil society, community-based organizations and underprivileged capacities in local urban planning, capacities in local level planning and management, then providing standard and extensive quality services for women's organizational sustainability, then to ensure the collaboration in carrying out the plan, to strengthen and mobilize the nation's effort and resources to support the plan, and to support unified economic policies in all domains of government, to ensure the balanced and speedy growth of the entire country, and lastly to provide underprivileged and troubled women and with advocacy and legal assistance. The functions and mandates of NDC are as follows: to define the criteria for forming the national plan, including the appraisals of plan resources, to take into account the Planning Commission's national plans, considering major social and economic policy issues affecting country's growth, to conduct periodic reviews of the plans, operations, and recommend steps which would be necessary to achieve the purposes and targets outlined in the national plan, then to consider important issues of social and economic policies affecting national development, and to improve the efficiency of administrative services and ensure the fullest development of less developed regions as well as sectors. Then there are certain powers and authorities which has been vested with National Development Councils. NDC's choices have been like policy formulation. It would not be an exaggeration to describe it as the country's highest policy making body. And even though that NDC is a non-statutory advisory body that offers recommendations to the central and the state governments, the council status ensures that these recommendations have the prestige of mandates and which are incorporated and are routinely followed and obeyed. In fact, the NDC is mandated to convene at least twice a year. However, it has not been more frequent in the past. The agenda for NDC, meetings, especially typically includes the approach paper to the 5-year plans, the draft 5-year plans, and the final 5-year plans. And other issues were also added to the agenda if the central, the state government would bring them into flow. The new role, if you look into the new role of NDC, Niti Aayog, which is now was established in 2015 to replace the National Planning Commission. So the NDC has been given a new role in the form of governing council of the Niti Aayog. So although it is the functions or the mandate on the objectives and the goals of it is almost the same, but it is a governing council to Niti Aayog. So the new NDC serves as a platform for cooperative federalism. It brings together the PM, the CMs of all the states and union territories and other senior officials to discuss and coordinate national development priorities. And its key functions include identifying key policy priorities and goals, reviewing and monitoring the progress of ongoing schemes and programs, and providing guidance and recommendation on policy and development related issues. The NDC also plays a very crucial role in ensuring key government schemes and initiatives which are effectively implemented. And the new role of NDC is seen as a step towards strengthening the federal structure of the country. It promotes greater collaboration between the central and the state governments, and it also ensures a more inclusive and participatory approach to national development. The significance of NDC is it strengthened the federal relations by involving the states in the planning process. It also enhanced cooperation between the central and the state. There's unified development goals. It helps aligning the diverse socioeconomic priorities of different states with the overarching national goals. Then increases accountability by having regular reviews and evaluations, ensured better accountability in the implementation of plans, and it also addresses regional disparities, which is focuses on equitable development by addressing the needs of underdeveloped and backward regions. So there are certain departments which works under the National Development Councils, like Department of Rural Planning, Department of Economic Development, Department of Social Development, Industrial Development, Human Resource Development, and so on. So it could be said that the National Development Council, it serves a unique function in a federal democracy, being the highest level body for deliberating and making decisions on development related topics, and it is crucial since the Prime Minister chairs it and all of the states chief ministers attend its sessions. So it is a mechanism particularly for enhancing the planning system, which is adopted for a national perspective, and the cooperation of the states ensures that the programs and the schemes are carried out efficiently and effectively, and the engagement of the states in the planning process ensures that the central as well as the state government goals are met. So there is there's a consultative, there is a continuous consultation, and it is a consultative institution which often makes certain recommendations and suggestions for the overall growth and development of the nation. That's all about NDC, and in my next lecture I will talk about Niti Aayog, how it is instrumental in the planning process, as well as I'll begin with decentralized planning. Thank you.